Keith Wilkinson joins us, anaesthetist here, or was in the Isle of Man and other places, who's written a book about what has been going on in his career. And this follows on from we interviewed you years ago about Manx Murders.
Manx Murders. That was 2003.
All right. But being an anaesthetist, that has brought you many stories to tell. So you put them all together.
Yes, too many really, but so I had to pick and choose which ones to include in the book.
Yeah.
But I was an anaesthetist for 37 years.
Wow.
And I retired after 30 years as a consultant at the hospital here.
What made you do that? This book, I mean, you know.
Well, I was coming to retirement after 30 years, and you know, I never had a day off, and I loved the job, and I knew I was going to miss it. So I thought as a way of winding down and easing into retirement, maybe, you know, to start writing the book. So I started maybe 18 months ago, and then it just went on from there really. And then I've spent the last, I wrote maybe half a book and then stopped for a few months and started. But basically it took me 18 months to finish, and I've finished just in the last few weeks really.
Much of your career was at Nobles, wasn't it?
30 years. 30 years as a consultant, and I started here in 82 after I finished training in Liverpool for my first year. So my first job as a doctor was on the Isle of Man as well. So I did 31 years altogether.
So many of the stories, I mean, obviously you've got client confidentiality, well not client, you know, but patient confidentiality. So you have to be careful about how you write these things up.
That was one of the main concerns, because I had to make sure no one recognised any of their, you know, loved ones or the, you know. So that's been a big, not a problem, but I've changed the dates, the sex of the patient, the operation they were having, the, you know, everything I can think of, even the hospital, you know, if it happened in Liverpool, I might say it happened in Newcastle. So I've changed as much as I can, so I don't think there's any chance of anyone spotting.
So is the book, it's not all happy, I presume there's a mixture in this book, is there, of outcomes? Yeah,
I mean, I've tried to include some humorous, you know, anecdotes from medical school and, you know, during my training, but that it's not, you know, the point of the book is being an anaesthetist and trying to let the lay readers and other doctors, you know, medical students know about my kind of journey really. So some of them are kind of tragic, you know, sad outcomes. Some of them I've put one or two in which, you know, shocked everyone because we thought the patient wasn't going to do well and they made like a full recovery. So I've tried to get that across as well, that it's not all black and white sometimes in medicine, you know.
Yeah, I got an impression that sometimes maybe Nobles, maybe other hospitals, you kind of get pushed in the deep end almost. Things are more tricky.
At Nobles, certainly got. I've said that in the book. I've caught one of the chapters called Nobles, and we were certainly thrown into the deep end because after I've said in the book, it's almost unique on the Isle of Man then in 1982, because we were medical students. You know, in July I was a medical student. In June, sorry, and then in August I was like on call for A&E. I was the doctor on for A&E, and you know, no idea what I was doing. I just qualified a few weeks before, and I was the A&E doctor because there was only 2 A&E doctors then. So the house officers basically stood in for that, you know. But we had help from the registrars and the SHOs above us. But basically, we were the first ones that saw the patient. So it was really literally chucked into the deep end, you know.
What made you want to get into this? Because this is a really sounds to me very specialised.
Into anaesthesia.
Yes. To do
that. That's again in the book, but basically, it's like, you know, when you do A levels, you do whatever A levels you're doing, and then a big problem then is what you're going to do. What you're going to go to, you know, what if you're going to go to university, what degree you're going to do, and that's an issue everyone has. And in medicine, because medicine's such a wide-ranging, you know, specialty, it's when you're going through medical school, it's the same problem. You know, you ask the other students what you're going to do, and no idea, you know. And sometimes at the end of the 5 years, a lot of doctors haven't got a clue, you know, so they maybe drift into general practice for a bit, or they drift into surgery, anaesthetic. So, but I was lucky because during the 5 years, I narrowed it down to either anaesthesia or ophthalmology, eye surgery. And when I came to Nobles in 82, I went to see Jim Travers, who was the eye surgeon, on the first day, and said, I'm trying to decide which. And then I saw Dougie Leese, who was the anaesthetist, and within a few weeks, I'd pretty well decided I was going to do anaesthetics. And then something happened later on in that year that convinced me that, and that's in the book, that convinced me that's what I wanted to do. And then from then on, I loved it, every minute of it. You know?
Did things change a lot? I mean, is it more of a science now?
It's changed a lot. The last chapter is called Changes, and I've described the major changes I've seen in anaesthesia. Like, for example, when I started in '82, there was no pulse oximeters. I've mentioned in the book that my grandson, when he was like 6, obsessed with St John's Ambulance, he used to go on Saturday morning, and his mother bought him an oximeter, which is perfectly usable, for £10 on eBay. In those days, there weren't any, and then when they came in, there was like 1 for 10 operating theatres, and everyone used to try and grab the oximeter. And now you would never dream of giving an anaesthetic without a pulse oximeter, but they didn't exist then.
Yeah.
So that's one little example. But having said all of that, I'm still not convinced anaesthesia is any safer now than it was, 40, 50 years ago.
And that must be well in your book about people who haven't made it. Obviously, we touched on that, but there's good stories as well, happy endings.
I've got some, there's a lot of happy endings. As I say, there's one in particular when, everyone was just convinced that the patient was going to die. And I'll not give the game away, but it's a great ending to it, I think. And it's at the end of a chapter called Death, which is about brain death and working in the hospice. And then I put that story at the end because, we were amazed that the patient made a full recovery. So, there's a lot of based on real life stories. There's a lot of individual patients, but they're all different, and there was so many. I had to spend a few weeks trying to narrow down which ones to put in the book.
Well, the book is called?
It's called If in Doubt,
right?
And it comes from a kind of an old adage, or a saying that all anaesthetists know. And basically, when you put a tube in your airway, in your windpipe, a tracheal tube, it can either go in the windpipe or into the esophagus. And all anaesthetists put the tube in the esophagus now and then, but if you don't recognise it, then there's no oxygen going to go into the patient's lungs, and the patient could die from it. So you wouldn't know what the title means till you get halfway through the book, and then I explain that, but that's the title.
And the book is available very soon. I mean, we got the graphic here, the front page, but
yes,
it's coming out very soon, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be, they tell me 2 to 3 weeks. So in fact, just this morning, it's been proofread. I've got and then I've just got to have a quick look through that. I've got the cover. I paid extra to get it, nice cover design. And basically, they tell me it's going to be 2 to 3 weeks from now, which should be available on Amazon as an e-book and a book. Yeah. And maybe, I think, Bridge Bookshop. It might only be Bridge Bookshop on the island.
Well, we'll see. Maybe so if others want interest, they should contact you.
Exactly, yes. So that's the situation there.
So, okay, that's book 2 undone.
Yep.
Any more?
No, that's definitely...
You got a music thing, we'll talk about that another time maybe.
No, there's nothing else, that's it.
Done.
That's good,
well,
thanks.
Congratulations. And when you read it back, I mean, did it sum up your life really?
Definitely. I mean, if I didn't sell a book, I'm not even bothered, because I've got the little, what's the word, at the start of the book.
The introduction there.
Yeah, I've said 4 my lovely grandchildren, 7 grandchildren. And if nothing else, when I think about it, it's like, I've mentioned my childhood, growing up, going through a bit of a school, A-levels, and everything from then on till the very last day at work. That's the last word in the book, my last day when I walk out of the hospital. So basically, I know very little about my grandparents, and my grandchildren, if they want to know, they're going to know everything from the book. So that's a good reason to do it in a way as well. And then, of course, for the charity as well. That's called going to charity, any money I get from the book. So
which charity?
NSPCC. So that's it. Yeah, that's my book.